Okay. With that, I will call the meeting to order at 6:01 p.m. And if we could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please, and pull up the slides. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And I'll turn it over to a roll call, please.
Mrs. Giller? Here. Mr. Pascal?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Mrs. Dion?
Yes.
Mrs. Carey?
Yes.
Mr. Annaly?
Yes.
Mr. Nolan?
Yes. And Mark, I couldn't hear you, at least there for a second, but I know you are here.
Yeah, no.
Oh, no, I can hear you now.
Okay, good.
And I will turn this over to Ms. Peggy O'Shea.
Good evening, everyone. So first of all, as always, compliments of Erin Cagwin. We have some pictures. The first two photos are from Van Skyke's recent college day. Current college students, all Cohoes grads, stop by for virtual and in-person visits to discuss what college life is like. Van Skyke teachers wore sweatshirts representing their respective alma mater. And the first photo features Isabel DeCero, who's a senior at Siena, and she visited with Mrs. Smith's second grade classroom where she was once a student. So Van Skyke is also having a career week in March. And at this time, I want to thank Junior Achievements, because Junior Achievements has agreed to work with all three of our elementary schools as well as our middle and high school, providing volunteers and career awareness activities for this year at no cost to the district. So more to follow. And then the third photo shows a recent science experiment in this guy's fourth grade classroom at Harmony Hill. The students put low germ gel on their hands to simulate the number of germs we typically encounter, and then examine their hands under a black light, followed by a thorough hand washing. They then re-examine their hands and determine that hand washing is an effective, important way to stay safe from harmful germs. So thank you to Mrs. Geis for that experiment. That was very helpful for our students. As always, if you have questions, please email them to boecomment@cohoes.org. So I wanted to give you a brief update on our change of instructional model responses. At the elementary level, it almost evened out. We had 11 requests to move to virtual instruction and 9 to move to in-person. From virtual, the elementary principals and I met today and were able to accommodate all these virtual requests. And I do know Mr. Bird is working through in-person, some in-person requests because of room sizes, but we will be continuing working through that tomorrow. It's hopeful, positive. And then at the secondary level, I know that Mr. Martinelli has been working through these, and many have already moved to virtual, but there were 32 requests to virtual and 6 to in-person. And then at the high school, the largest number, 48 requests to move to virtual and 1 to in-person. And sorry, we forgot to change the total number at the bottom as the numbers increase. So that is not new math, that's incorrect math. And then Stacy's going to provide some information to you, but I wanted to start, since I'm talking, with a brief budget update about our needs assessment meetings. So we met with the elementary BLTs and also at the secondary level. We met with the teacher leaders and representatives of the various departments. And I wanted to just say that these were very thoughtful, very thorough discussions. I think I said to Stacy after that I know some of the discussions were difficult, but it was the most fun that I've had in a long time. So these were, it was so great to be really having the discussions with the staff and administrators. There were some recurrent themes in terms of strengths, the effort on the part of all of our staff to adapt in this ever-changing environment and to provide a sense of normalcy to our students, the resiliency on the part of our students, and then also some common threads in terms of needs, staffing, time for teachers to work on curriculum, social, emotional. So as we go through our budget discussions, we'll be going more in depth at this, and then Stacy's going to fill you in a little later on our first budget committee, which the elementary needs assessments will share.
So we received notice this week that we were selected for an audit for the Office of the State Comptroller. So they'll be reaching out to us within the next few weeks to schedule a kickoff date for the engagement. The preliminary assessment will focus on district financial operations. So it'll cover purchasing, payroll, budgeting, and whatever else they decide to select. Once the engagement begins, we will be asked to send electronic information, and they will conduct any field work that they can remotely. It says also in the letter that they'll be available to meet anytime once the engagement has started. And then at the conclusion, obviously we'll meet again. They'll have a report with recommendations on improvements. I'll keep you updated as that progresses. For the 2021-22 budget updates, we did receive unfortunate news. Albany County is not able to provide us voting machines for our school elections, so that was a surprise. They said that it's logistically unfeasible with the primary election being held in June. So we did reach out to legal. Is aware of the situation where obviously our bonus school impacted Albany County. So we're exploring our options. We could lease from an alternative provider. We could purchase our own if they were county approved, but that's not something that I'm going to recommend. And then there's the option for paper ballots. So really, we're looking at the lease option and the paper ballot option. So I'll let you know as soon as we have more information on that. But that was a little bit of a shock to us. We weren't expecting that.
So the reasoning is because of where it falls in the calendar year?
All they said was that it was with the amount of machines requested, it was unfeasible was the word. With their primary election in June. Yeah.
June, you're going to do early voting again. Governor said they can do early voting, so it's going to like squish in there. And they're panicked they couldn't get it all. When we take ours back, they're going to reformat them and everything.
So I don't know why Albany County is the only one so far.
Is it all districts in Albany County?
Yes, to my knowledge, yes.
Interesting.
Yes. The preliminary executive budget. So that was just released this morning to us. Some highlights, and again, this information is preliminary. As the state finalizes their budget, the information will change. But just some of the key takeaways. the foundation aid is frozen for the second consecutive year. So it's at the 1920 levels. They are recommending in their proposal a new category called services aid. And that's basically condensing 11 of the expense-driven aid categories. It's condensing them, and it's also making reductions based off of school enrollment and wealth factors. So the impact for us on the proposal for just those two recommendations within the proposal would be a $600,000 loss over current year budgeted figures for aid. Another new item is the local district funding adjustment, which is the lesser of STAR or projected stimulus monies for 21-22. For us, that would be a negative adjustment of $1.473 million. So between those three items, it would be over a $2 million negative impact, again, over the budgeted figures for this year for aid. Good news is the federal coronavirus response and relief supplemental appropriation, it's federal stimulus money that they're projecting, and that's a positive 1.846 million. So when you net all those factors together, it's basically a net loss of just over $200,000. Again, this information is going to change as we progress. We did hear from Assemblymember McDonald today. He is scheduled to come to our attend our February 24th meeting to give us an update on how things are progressing. We'll talk about this more with our first budget presentation, and then again revisit with Assemblymember McDonald. Do you have any questions on that yet?
So I know that last year they had talked about doing some consolidation of the expense-based aids, and that did not go through.
It didn't.
Is this a similar model, and are they the same expense-based? So I'm assuming it's like transportation and excess costs.
So it doesn't include the excess and the private
Okay.
aid categories, the special ed. It does include transportation, BOCES, charter school, library, software, hardware. So the majority of the expense-driven aids, yes.
So
What's new this year is the adjustment, the reduction piece. That's new this year.
So currently, those expense-based aid programs are all at a different level of return?
Yeah, so
This consolidation would make it one level of return, or?
this consolidation basically takes your enrollment and it'll multiply it by a factor based off of your wealth. So it's going to be unique for your school. The way that the existing aids work, BOCES aid is based off a percentage, based off your school demographics. Transportation aid, again, is a percentage based off your actual expenses. The textbook, hardware, and software are capped, and that's based off of your number of students, and it's also based off of your prior year expenses. You can commingle those, so in other words, if you spent in excess in the hardware category, but you underspent in software, you can adjust it on the ST3s so that you maximize your aid. Charter school transition is based off of enrollment in your charter schools. Yeah.
Is our tuition going down this year?
For charter schools?
Yeah.
Slightly.
So the booklet that came with all of this business says that a lot of that is temporary and some of the reductions may not be permanent if we get the federal funding. Is there any hope that we're gonna be able to make good on what is still owed us? Does it look like that particular piece was, it's out, it's over, you're done?
Right, so if we haven't had, we could ask Assemblymember McDonald that question. But I only I assume if we don't receive the money by March, we're not going to get that money.
Some much more affluent neighboring districts are getting a lot of money. So maybe the assembly number could help.
I found it interesting that the adjustment is based off of STAR. That has really nothing to do with so STAR revenue is part of the tax levy, basically. It's a reduction that most residents receive on their tax bill, and it's basically this, the state subsidizes a share, but it's the levy, it's levy revenue. So I found it very interesting that that's what they use for the calculation.
So with that, as we're preparing for next year's budget, how do you see that impacting some of our decisions as to whether or not we're gonna go with expense-driven programs if the reimbursement is not what we've budgeted for or what we have an expectation to get off of, you know, I just am curious, value versus return. If we're not making money on the programs, is that gonna impact how we're making decisions
It
in the
should,
budget process?
it should be reflected. If it's something that's proposed, and as long as it's not something that's mandated or requirement, a return on investment would be completed, and that would be, the aidability would be a factor, definitely, in evaluating that particular program or service.
So have you had to rework your, I know that you had talked about, through the budget process, there would be certain criteria that you would have to meet within, starting at a zero-based budget, and like a form, basically, you were having completed, is this gonna impact that process at all?
It will, yeah. When we review the return on investments, we have only had the elementary thus far. The return on investments that were completed, we didn't review as a budget committee yet because they're incomplete, not enough data. So part of the feedback was prioritizing those requests, so that'll be something that when we're reviewing the return on investments, we're asking that either the directors or the principals to prioritize those needs for us. From an aidability, that would be something that the business office would supply as support of the return on investment, but it's something that we would factor in because it's a cost benefit. That's one of the criteria that we're gonna evaluate.
Okay. So time frame for this 21-22 proposal, is it in line with where we need to be for our budget? Because this is just proposed budget from the state, right?
Right, so they don't normally finalize until April 1.
So no.
No.
Okay, good to know. Good luck. Sorry.
Hopefully we'll have little drabs of information.
I know, and listen, I'm not trying to be difficult, it just is helpful to wrap our brains around all the things if we're starting we're starting from zero,
Absolutely.
you know, and so this just adds on another difficult layer for us where we obviously would love to see a return on investment in some of our programs, but if we don't know what that's gonna be, it's really hard to make those decisions.
Right.
And even to transition to anything new or different that we haven't done before, that unexpected and unknown is just sitting there. So, you know, it's good to be out in the open that that's an issue.
Absolutely. So this slide hasn't changed, it's really just a reminder. It's the budget committee schedule. We have met with the elementary schools, we met with them last week. The process went smoothly. Again, a lot of the feedback on needs are similar based off of students not being able to attend and the concern about gaps in learning and behavioral concerns once they are back in the buildings for a full day. So, but we'll talk about that as they present in early February. The next program area is going to be special programs. And that'll be Monday, the 25th. I know they are finalizing their workbook, so committee members should expect that probably tomorrow. Following that, on Wednesday, we'll be meeting with Buildings and Grounds and IT. And on the 29th, we'll be meeting with Central Office, BOE Service Review, meeting with our middle school and high school, as well as athletics. And presentation, this again is just a reminder, we talked about this the last time we met as well. February 10th will be the first budget presentation. We'll focus on our elementary schools. We'll do a preliminary walkthrough of the tax cap calculation. And we'll also have a more in-depth conversation regarding the executive non-proceed. On the 24th, Assemblymember McDonald will be joining us. So we'll be giving us an update on the state budget. We'll do a final walkthrough of the tax cap, and we'll be reviewing our special programs, buildings and grounds, and IT. On March 10th, the presentation will focus on secondaries, and that will include athletics as well. Central office and BOE services. The March 24th and April 14th are for budget deliberation discussions. And hopefully we'll have some updates on revenue for the April 14th meeting. And then April 21st would be the complete budget presentation, and the board will take action at that meeting. School budget deadlines. Again, March 1st is the deadline for the tax levy calculation. April 23rd is the deadline for the board to adopt the budget. We will have our budget hearing the week of May 4th and May 11th. And then the statewide vote is May 18th. And then we wanted to, are there any questions about any presentations and deadlines?
Are we still meeting with city officials to discuss?
Yes, we are. We're booking that. We have a meeting, I think, on Friday with Mr. Jakes to talk about when we're gonna finalize that meeting.
We're coming up with a date and then letting you know.
Yeah.
I also wanted to mention that Mr. Nolan, Mr. Jackson, and Mrs. Perry are on the budget committee, and so we got to spend some quality time through Zoom last week. And any input, feedback, anything you would like to say in terms of the meeting?
So I want to thank the elementary principals first. They were honest, they were brutally honest, and really open about what their needs were, what they could do, what their vision was for their individual schools. It's not pretty. We have so much more need than we have funding for, and we have to make terrible decisions. There's not any way to sugarcoat that. The new process is going to be helpful because it will quantify things more in a way that we haven't had before. But it's still going to be not a great process. I mean, outcome, I guess.
Okay.
Outcome, not the process.
Process will be good.
Process is good, Stacy, sorry.
Thank you. Anything else?
No, I think you hit a lot of it on the head. I think it's important that we just remain transparent and make sure that we're providing staff sort of with the overall picture and how things are being handled and talked about, just to make sure that they understand that their concerns are being heard, and that we're going to have some really tough and difficult decisions to make. Unfortunately, it's not going to be a question of whether something's valuable. It's always going to pit one thing against needs to know.
So this brings us back to the beliefs and commitment and continued discussion since the last time we met.
Yep, so at this
Stacy?
point in time, I'm gonna turn this over to Mr. Nolan.
Thank you. I was going to ask another question on the budget front. First of all, you emailed us earlier with the breakdown of like foundation, local district adjustment, net loss, and then the COVID-19 stimulus funds. And the COVID-19 stimulus funds was, I think, like 1.846 million, and it ended up in a net loss of 200, a little over 200,000, even with those funds. Now, is that funding that, can you explain that a little bit more? Because I know the state is asking for more federal funding to help. Is that what they're assuming, that they're going to get that amount, or is that we're asking for some above and beyond that?
It is an assumption.
This was based on almost 6 billion from the federal, or 15?
So, yeah, it is an assumption, so.
Okay, so there's nothing that is not, because I know that there was federal, COVID relief funding that we had applied for and applied for again. That's not what this is talking about, right?
Oh, it's right, it's not, so that was the CARES Act, and that's
Okay.
current year. We applied for it late summer, early fall, then we had to reapply for it in November. That was $600,000, and it was a two-prong stimulus package called ESSER, and years is based on the Title I allocation. So we're lucky enough that we did benefit from that. So this is different. This is, hold on, I'll get the acronym.
I just wanted to make sure I understood it correctly, that this
Yes.
was like hopeful funding that will bridge the gap. Otherwise, like, it's a very large gap.
Yeah, the acronym is CRRSA, and it's the Federal Coronavirus Response and Relief Supplemental Appropriation. And it's an assumption that that would be an appropriation for us for the 21-22 school year. And the base is the 2021 enrollment multiplied by $952 less 90% of ESSER funds.
So is that in like an act that people have already proposed to, like congressmen or okay, assemblymen?
Yeah, there was a December proposal. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
So I know that you're not an expert, but I mean, you didn't make this, but like the CARES Act was very limiting in what we could actually
Yes,
spend money on.
absolutely.
Is this COVID relief stimulus going to be as limiting?
So we don't know what we can use it for,
Okay,
right?
right.
So without it, we have a $2 million gap.
Right, so we're assuming that this is gonna, help with that gap, but we don't know if these are
Right.
operational expenditures or what we can actually spend money on.
Absolutely, Margaret, yes.
Yes.
We also receive it again this school year.
We'll have to do some financial like Jenga when we find out what we can
Yeah.
spend it on.
If we could point out, we still have not received our
The last
CARES
one.
or CARE.
Yeah,
funding.
not one
We haven't
Most of them-
received
That
that
was from like, what, June, July?
June, and then we had to resubmit.
We had to
in the
resubmit in
fall.
November.
But still, a June bill over in January.
And important to note that CARES Act required us to provide funding to private schools.
Yes.
Even schools out of our district and outside of our realm, but that our students attend. And we don't know if there's gonna be any piece of this other federal COVID stimulus that, even though we have this potential funding, we don't know if we're gonna have to support the private programs
Correct.
through that as well.
Correct. Yes, all.
Just gonna keep adding question marks.
That is correct. Yeah,
Thank you, Stacy.
you're welcome. I'm sorry, it's always bad news.
Someday we'll give the good news.
As far As far as the commitments goes, we talked about wordsmithing a little bit, and at the bottom of the slide here, there are 3 different variations that were discussed. One was all students will leave school with clearly delineated goals, including comprehensive career education and a path to personal success. That's option 1. And then all students will graduate with comprehensive career education, clearly delineated goals, and a path to personal success. The key difference between 1 and 2 there is leave school versus graduate, and whether leave school is perhaps a little bit of a negative connotation compared to graduate. Not sure. And then the third option was the district is committed to comprehensive career education at all grade levels, with the expectation of every student graduating with clearly delineated, personalized career goals. That one's a little bit more, wordier and involved, but that's my personal favorite. We wanted to open it up to everyone to kind of get our final say on what we're going to put into the policy here.
All right, so I actually went back to my notes from when we created these because I was struggling with wording a bit. I guess my concern with some of these that mention leaving school, graduating, is that we had specifically written it to be more inclusive of like the journey through school and not just this finish line that's out there. And then the other thing that I think was important when we were writing it was that it was balanced to include both growth, academics, and careers. And I'm worried that some of the new wording sort of unbalances the way that's portrayed. So I guess I'd like to add a thought to the list of all students will be prepared for success and supported through personal growth, academic achievement, and comprehensive career education.
So I was, Rick, I was definitely struggling with making sure that it was not just focused on graduation as well, which is actually why I like the part about at all grade levels in the third one. And I think that those are really good points about making sure it's balanced between career and academic. Those both parts of the commitment. So I think that's.
I wouldn't want to lose personalized career goals. I think that's as important as anything. Our students probably more important and probably the most important. Clearly delineated, personalized career goals, and I'm fine with adding to that.
So the important thing to you is the personalized career goals as well, Mark?
Clearly delineated person. And to do that, you would need.
Could we go with clearly defined?
Educational grade levels. Sure.
I understand your passion for careers. I just want to make sure we're staying balanced.
It's not for me. It's for our students.
No, sorry, I'm not gonna lie. Delineated, I personally think is a horrible word.
Yes.
I understand what the word means, but when you read it, it doesn't look like it means what it means. Anything with D before you think is going to be is a negative connotation to the word, and obviously it's not. But I defined. I think is better without thinking about it. To be honest.
Yeah.
So Rick, could you read what you had proposed one more time?
Sure. So I had proposed all students will be prepared for success and supported through personal growth, academic achievement, and comprehensive career education.
We could change that last part to supported through personal, what was it? I'm sorry. Personalized growth.
Clearly defined personalized career goals.
Can you add Mark's?
Yeah, I just got to think about it. We had spent 15 minutes on this.
Get rid of delineation.
Absorb for a second.
Yeah.
Yes.
Fine.
No, but I do like the direction, the the pivot there, Rick, personally, I think that makes sense too. We are trying to balance both sides of the coin here, and I think that makes sense. We're gonna let Rick puzzle on that for a little bit. And is there any other questions, budget related, or anything from the board on any item related to the agenda?
I have a question. Is there was one item that looked like it repeated, the Vanderheim contract was on twice? Or is it a different contract? It's
C and F, or C and D.
yeah.
No, it's the same one. I moved it and I forgot to delete it. So, the numbering is gonna end at H. 7, A through H. Thanks, Lydia.
Sorry, Joe.
No, that's good.
Spending money we don't have.
So-
You're right.
Double spending.
I just had a couple of questions related to the presentation, like early on, if you mind circling back. So I had a question on the virtual model, the transition, in person or vice versa. Is that a commitment for the remainder of the school year, but like for the second semester? Is there an opportunity once things calm down a bit for kids to come back in person, or is this?
Well, so for the elementary and middle, it does go by quarter. For the secondary, it goes by semester. The scheduling is much more intricate, and actually, we met today and meeting again tomorrow because so a number of requests to accommodate. So to move to virtual, the commitment is, through the semester, so that fourth quarter would be very difficult for someone to say I need to be virtual now. But throughout the year, students have wanted to return. They have been returning to the buildings, to all of it. We want our kids in front of us.
Right, okay. All right.
I've got a question about the advertising virtual. How are we doing with, we've got the new Chromebooks?
Mhm.
How have we done with the rollout of that? Where are we up to with, has every student got one? Have we still got just like sharing between families in some cases?
Oh, we got some good news finally.
Yeah, that was good news. So at the elementary, so for our virtual models, or when anyone switches to virtual,
Okay,
our model, we can't share amongst families because our middle
Right.
and high sign-on period by period and elementary is throughout the day. So we received enough Chromebooks to distribute them one-on-one to fifth and fourth graders.
okay,
And then at the third grade level, so this is for in school, but also the kids bring them home and fifth and
Right,
bring them back and
sure.
forth. In school, there's now enough for the remainder of those to move to third grade with a card to be used in third grade too.
Okay.
And then there's cards at the other levels. But if we had to move, so for example, at the elementary to remote, we believe between people who have devices at home and the devices we have,
okay,
we would be able to have enough. So it's not that we've assigned one-on-one to every child, but we don't have enough to do that at this point.
right,
But we believe we have enough to support remote learning.
okay,
And Sylvie is also continuing to look for additional Chromebooks. Those took us quite a while to get. And we're also planning, we know that our teacher devices, one of the very first devices that we purchased. So we're trying some hardier Chromebooks we're purchasing 5 or 6 to have teachers use over the next month or so as we move into the budget time to tell us if that would meet their needs.
Okay.
So, okay.
I believe at the beginning of the year, there were instructions sent out for people who had their own Chromebooks, how to sign on to, so they could use it. Is there a way to resubmit that or show where that is for people? Because I've heard a couple of instances where people have their own Chromebooks and then haven't been able to sign on, they didn't get the tech support that they need, and so have been given a school one.
Yeah.
And so like, they don't need, so now you've got kids that have 2 perfectly good Chromebooks, one of their own, one from school, all because they didn't get the tech support at the beginning to just show where the logins and everything are.
The keys are gonna be making it so it'll automatically sign on to the network, so basically they have to be on the network to get it set up front. And then number 2 is, once you're logged in, setting up class link, so it automatically pops that up as your home, and then you can get from there everywhere else. I may or may not have sat on the playground outside Abram Lansing in September, setting up 3 laptops.
So bring a code.
Yeah.
Come on, we've got 5 minutes.
It was nicer
Let's go.
then, it was a lot nicer.
And then just so, as a reminder for everyone, we do have a tech support page on our website, and there's also an app that parents can download. But I understand you're talking about if you are bringing your own device.
Right.
The way.
Yeah, they came in, kids came
Yeah.
into school.
Yeah.
It's happened at a couple of places that I've heard. They've come in with their brand new Chromebook, said, how does this work? And they've been told, we don't know, here's a school one.
Yeah, so I mean,
I
that's
don't think it's
obviously,
gonna work
it's a
out.
tough ask for the teacher to have to.
Right, so I understand that, but what I don't want to happen is, if we did surveys and, parents have said, hey, we've got our own Chromebook, we budgeted for that, and then we give them our own, now we've got somebody down the line that doesn't have one, or they're sharing at, the lower elementary level.
So that's very useful information, and we'll work with Sylvie and Jens and Jeff. Do you have, are we with work?
Almost.
So I have another
I just like watching.
quasi-related.
You
want Margaret to stop asking questions. So you had mentioned during your BLT meetings that the elementary had stressed the need for time for curriculum and development. And, it just kind of makes me circle back to our presentation last week with Mr. Bird and the work that's being done with that plan and with BOCES. And I'm wondering what the platform for the delivery of training is, and if that's something that we might be able to expand on and have. So, we're in this scenario right now where school day hours and, there's a little bit of a piece where there's some flexibility. I don't know if we have applied for a waiver to allow for some of this support for our staff to do PD hour, at some point, or, just wondering your thoughts on being able to get the most out of that BOCES training. I feel like the opportunity to have all of our teachers trained in the same way by the same folks is obviously ideal.
So actually, I'm scheduling a discussion with Teresa Billington and Sharon Swain to discuss the rest of the elementary. The platform for this is half days during the school day with subs, because Abram Lansing, and again, through school improvement funds would cover the subs, and it would be 3 subs at a time, which is manageable for a half day. The difficulty, and it would be virtual, I mean, the teachers will be virtual in different locations, not together. So the difficulty with doing that at the same time, like we used to with grade level, would be having a grade level meeting to get subs at the time, and there are no subs. So actually, that's part of the discussion. We talked about teachers being turnkey trainers for that model, but I don't want to wait until the summer, and then, that'll be wonderful to have turnkey to go more in depth. We actually started this process last March in math, and then we went virtual. So, but that's part of the discussion I'm planning on having with them. Are there ways that we can piggyback, and some of it be recorded and shared? Can we do it more? Can we have some extension sessions after school? So that is part of the plan. Lansing is starting with ELA first in January, and then moving to math. I think district-wide math is the area where elementary-wide where we really need to just focus on. Go Math is our current instructional tool. It's aligned with course standards, not next gen standards, and we've been pulling from that. But we had a decision to make in that too, and that came up at all of our elementary meetings. So I'm going to frame the discussion with BOCES because around math first and how we can go from there, and then look to the summer for PLA.
I mean, my thought was, you know, there's not many things that we can seize in this current opportunity to take advantage of, but that time might be one that we could, if need be. And so, some out of the box thinking of, you know, trying to get more access for all of our staff. You know, I think it would be beneficial for everyone to get the same level of training, and you know, having a turnkey trainer and having a teacher train teachers is a great model to use for new teachers or for someone, you know, who's a little bit seasoned in what they're doing. But it's just a thought that, you know, maybe a consistent approach might get us better results as a district and not just one building.
Right. So the plan is a consistent approach. I mean, it's unpacking the standards, which we did start last year. And so unpacking the math standards, really looking at the teaching points, and then moving that into curriculum, that piece would be district-wide with all the resources, which, so a common platform. It's just trying to figure out, because we have the school improvement grant funds, which have to be used by a certain time for Urban Lansing, and then how to leverage that further. So that is part of the bigger discussion. But just how to do it.
And that's a meeting that's happening soon, and you can let us know.
Yes, I had a conversation actually this morning with Lori Demo, who's the deputy superintendent assistant at BOCES, and from there she emailed Tracy Ellington. And so I have some times to choose from, maybe when I get home, maybe tomorrow. But yeah, it'll be happening soon.
Okay, great.
Thanks. And that did come up in both, all three meetings, math and then science. So that's why district wide that will be the first.
And speaking of virtual meetings, are we in a current state where our meetings are virtual, like your admin cabinet meetings?
Yeah, I have said all meetings virtual because I don't want to end up having a number of people having to quarantine if something happens. So all meetings from BLTs to admin to ISPs, and that's that everything be virtual.
I think that's a good move for where we are right now. Okay, how we doing?
All right, let's try this again. I still will need more feedback, but all students will be prepared for success and supported through personal growth, academic achievement, and comprehensive career education with clearly defined individual plans.
Again.
All students will be prepared for success and supported through personal growth, academic achievement, and comprehensive career education with clearly defined individual plans.
Last part, clearly defined.
Clearly defined individual plans. I could also change that to goals instead of plans.
I only got to support it. Can you say that one more time?
Go slow, please.
All students will be prepared for success and supported through personal growth, academic achievement, and comprehensive career education with clearly defined individual plans.
I like that.
Yeah, that works.
Yeah, I like that.
I was going to say the same thing. I think it works. It's a little bit broader than career because I know career is an important part of your future plan, but it might not be the only piece.
I like,
Well, I hate to be the jerk, but she fits. We lost kind of the whole at grade level and out in the world. Is there some way to fit that in? Maybe all students would be prepared for success at every grade level and beyond and beyond, or some way to work that back in so it's.
It does include individual growth, though.
Yeah, so I tried to include personal and individual
Yes. Individual
while
growth.
getting away from
So we're, all right, we hit it there.
smarty with the other stuff.
We hit it there, as long as it's implied.
Yeah, I had sort of interpreted it as the like all grade levels were part of since it wasn't specified and it was broad enough, since I don't think you touched on graduation, that it was sort of implied that it was
Students?
Yeah, right,
Also starts with all
exactly.
students.
But I think it depends on whether we think it needs to be clearly delineated.
You again.
delineated about 5 times.
And you'll email that to us.
Sending it to all of you right now.
I'm on board with that.
Peter.
Absolutely.
Okay, so Rick, you're sending that to all of
I'm
us?
sending that to the whole group, yes.
Okay, perfect. And we will for sure have this finalized by the next meeting.
It'll be a reading at the next meeting. We'll put it on as a first reading the next meeting.
As far as, are there any other discussions from board members, anything from the presentation, the agenda?
If we're doing the first reading, are we tweaking the vision as well?
So currently, it's the purpose and a plan for all, correct?
That's what I'm asking, so we're moving that to that on that reading as well. Okay.
I did want to thank the various folks that were involved in the donations for iPads for Avon Lansing's from Donors Choose, and then also it was mentioned in the last meeting, but the donation from the Cohoes Waterford Alex as well. So thank you to those groups and individuals responsible. They're always extremely helpful as we talk about every meeting about how our budget situation and everything going on. These donations really do make an impact to the kids in classrooms and all over. So thank you again.
The retirees.
I was gonna say that.
Here we go.
As far as retirees, the point I was going to make is that these are all retirees at the end of the year, and we do an event at the end of the year to highlight, or typically in the past, I guess we would have, but we'll make sure that we highlight everyone at the end of the year.
Well, I just, on the agenda tonight, if we can just point out who would like to, Evelyn Smith, Regina Hansen, Kelly Burtnick, and Judy Kubik. And we want to thank you for your commitment to students, for all your years of work. I've worked with all of you for a number of years, and you will be missed by everyone. So thank you.
I mean, that's a group of some highly experienced educators there.
Yeah.
And I know that they have each made an impact on their buildings and the students that they see. And definitely congratulations on your decision to resign, but we will be missing you in the years to come, so.
We need substitutes, people with professional development.
Yes, for sure. I concur. Any other comments on the agenda? Okay, with that, for tonight's agenda, we were striking the secondary accidental inclusion from the contract with Vendor Hayden, and then making the policy reports a reading for this one. So could I get a motion for the consent agenda with those changes?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Mrs. Giller,
Yes.
Mr. Pascal,
Yes.
Mr. Jackson,
Yes.
Mrs. Dion,
Yes.
Mrs. Carey,
Yes.
Mr. Annaly,
Yes.
and Mr. Nolan.
Yes. Thank you, everyone. I was just checking. I don't have any questions or comments from the public. I had 2 miscellaneous comments that I can end with, but are there any other comments from the board on any topic at all?
I have a
Margaret?
Oh, sorry.
Sue?
Okay, I didn't know if you were going, Margaret. Sorry. My question, I think I have a feeling I know the answer, but I've been asked this a few times. When the second vaccine is administered to our staff and they wait the appropriate amount of time, depending on which vaccine they receive, is quarantining still required if they have a case in their class or they come in contact with a COVID case?
So I don't have a definitive answer at this time. I mean, I'm hearing that quarantining could still be required, but I will look more into it and get back to you.
Okay, I know the test isn't
Is that what,
100%.
that's what I've been hearing, that it is still going to be required?
Yeah. Well, yeah, the validity, I mean, the test doesn't protect you 100%. So, you know, it's like 95, 96, whatever. So I'm assuming that quarantining will still be required, but I've been asked that by, you know, I've been asked to address that.
Yes, so until the DOH tells us no longer, so at this point in time, what we've been reading is that it will be required.
Is that what?
What we've been reading is it will be required at this point in time, but I will provide updates whenever I get them.
Okay, thank you.
So I just had something to bring up that was not agenda related. So some of the news outlets that have been reportedly making some effort in the legislature with athletics and the push to open sports again. I don't know, and this is pretty recent. I mean, we're seeing it kind of all over Facebook, and we've seen that you know, a lot of other states are allowing sports to happen, and I know that, you know, we're following whatever the governor's regulations are. But my question is, with all of this conversation, are we ready? And are we in a position where if something does go through, that our student athletes can participate, and if we're ready to make that happen?
So isn't it interesting that all the questions you asked me, I have a meeting tomorrow. We really do. We do. We have a meeting with Jeff tomorrow after school. He had a recent 80s meeting, and then I know he has another meeting, I think it's next week, with suburban council. I know there's been some conversation of potentially February. I don't know, it's not official, but there is conversation. So we're going to talk tomorrow. As you know, the high school has been remote this week, and last week he has come up with very solid plans for conditioning for different sports. Practices are not allowed, but conditioning is, and so we're going to be talking about that as well as part of that conversation.
And is that something that, if the plan is good and you like what you hear, that we're a go with it? Is that a green light, you know, after that conversation, or is that waiting to
I think we
have
still have to
discussion?
continue to see what's, you know, continue to track this week
Right.
in terms of pieces and all of that, and then it could be you know, ready to begin and then continuous track. So I'll have more information after tomorrow.
Sports are always a hot topic.
I know.
It's something that people are very passionate about, and you know, now that these petitions are being sent around, it's just one more thing, you know, that is, you know, I guess in my mind, are we ready? Can we do this? You know, and what our status is, because when
safely.
but even when somebody asks me, I have no idea. I really don't. I don't know where we are in the process. I know that we've approved a couple of volunteer coaches just for, you know, those sports that are happening, which like bowling, right? But we haven't really acted on anything else, and I don't know. I know that we've had discussion about some preseason kind of workouts, but I don't even know where we are in the process with that.
So we had the discussions. We were looking at potentially starting, and then cases increased, and so then that was put on hold. We're going to continue to have discussions. We're meeting tomorrow, and I do understand that there are eager students and parents, and originally the conversation was that we would have notification by December 31st from the governor, and then we didn't have that notification. So,
okay. Is that something that we can expect to get an update on? I know that we don't have answers, but I'm more interested in what our plan is and not what the governor decides. If the governor decides tomorrow, yes, we can go, I'm just more interested to know what our preparation is and if we're ready to turn key or not, or, you know, I get that everything is based on the health of our students and safety of our students, and I think that's absolutely priority. It's just, in my mind, I don't have an answer for any of those questions. So.
Right, so right now bowling is the only sport that has started in Cohoes, and that has been going well with plans, you know, very good plans for social distancing and virtual matches. So I will provide you with.
Great.
I don't think I have any other meetings tomorrow. Are
you sure?
She has no more questions.
Let me know what your schedule is, and then I'll just come up with an agenda for you.
there another comment? I thought someone else was going to bring something up.
It was pretty much answered, it's fine.
As far as other topics, I did have two things that I wanted to bring up. One was, and these are not related to the agenda or just broader things, but there was a section of Amanda Gorman's reading today at the inauguration that I thought was befitting for us as a board. So I was just going to read that small section because I think it's got a few things worth mentioning for us. So the reading was, and yes, we are far from polished, far from pristine, but that doesn't mean we are striving to form a union that is perfect. We are striving to forge our union with purpose, to compose a country committed to all cultures, colors, characters, and conditions of man. And so we lift our gazes, not to what stands between us, but what stands before us. We close the divide because we know to put our future first. And so I thought that was when we often talk about a plan and a purpose specifically, and here again with our commitments, we talk about it a bunch, and also our roles here, with education at large, just about putting the future first. And I thought that was just a nice reflection point to bring up here. And if you haven't had a chance, I recommend that you get a chance to listen to or read the reading from today.
And like Maya Angelou, she'll be her poetry will make it to the classroom for English teachers. I know that.
Is she available to do a revision of the workshop? I think she might be pretty good at that. Send her an email maybe.
She's a wonderful wordsmith, though. Yeah, I don't know. We can reach out.
Unless you want to use delineators.
Thank you for sharing that with us, Matt.
Yeah, no, I thought it was it's very good. So if you get a chance to
Very good.
Read or
she was
check
pretty
out the rest of it.
inspirational.
It
Yeah.
was.
And just that small section caught my eye because of it seemed to connect well to what our purpose and goal is here. And then the last thing was I happened to be going through a bunch of stuff, and I was going to ask Aaron to bring something up on screen here. So it's a week late, but I thought you all might enjoy this throwback, particularly Mr. Bird, although he's not here at this meeting at the moment. But I happened to be going through a bunch of old papers and things that my mom had kept for me, and just a lighthearted end here. I thought that if you could pick out where I am, or just the throwback to Mr. Bird, I thought you might all appreciate the class photo here from 1998. That's all I have.
The green background?
That's enough.
Green. Yep. I was checking it out after. I was like, I'm the only one that was green. It looks so good. Like,
Either of you change a little bit. Fantastic.
That's great.
but I thought you all might appreciate that, just to wrap up our meeting here, just and thinking about teachers and staff as we reflect on people that are retiring. Just make a lifelong impact as I look at my class photo of people that I'm still friends with, and teachers and staff that made a huge impact on me. So thank you to everyone retiring, and so thank you to those that have retired before.
Well said. Well said. Thank you.
I don't have anything else. I believe our next set of meetings are February 10th and 24th, and we'll continue to live stream them, as it seems like that'll be the direction things continue to move in, although I believe I don't know if it's been extended or not officially, but we'll keep our eye on that, and if anything changes, we will let everybody know. And we are not in need of an executive session, so with that, I'll just ask for a motion to adjourn the meeting at 7:11.
Albert?
Second.
Mrs. Giller,
Yes.
Mr. Pascal,
Yes.
okay, Mr. Jackson,
Yes.
Mrs. Dion,
Yes.
Mrs. Carey,
Yes.
Mr. Annaly,
Yes.
and Mr. Nolan.
Yes. Thank you, everyone, and I hope you have a good rest of your evening.
Take care. Peace.
Thank you.
See ya.